those marshmallows are looking pretty toasty and they're smelling fantastic. Today on Go Island, we are camping. That's right, we are camping inside the Nanaimo Museum. Today on Go, getting to know Joe Stanhope, chair of the RDN, and a brand new feature we're calling Clocked, a 1-hour real-time challenge that can lead to anywhere. That and more today on Go. You are watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. These marshmallows were smelling so good that I had to get one for myself. We're here at the Nanaimo Museum in downtown Nanaimo. We're camping. David, I never thought that camping would end up in the museum as an exhibit. What is museum worthy about camping?
Well, camping's a really important part of living on the island.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a lot of people move here for lifestyle, so we have camping. But you know, in the early days, camping was important not only for recreation, but people went hunting and had camps, they had fishing, they had camps. So it was an important part of daily life. So what we have here is a series of camps going back. Whoa!
Sorry. That is definitely a part of camping.
That's a part of camping. You got Kate's right into it.
So you've got, it goes back how far?
So the tents here we have go back as far as the 1850s. So the style of tents and the camping and that. So what we want to do is capture some of those, like the equipment and campsites of different time periods. So we have the wall tent, we have
a pup tent?
No tent behind us, very common in the 60s and 70s. A lot of people remember those. This one came from Simpson series. And of course, behind me is a good old pup tent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it feels great in here. We've been here a few minutes and we can hear birds chirping. We're roasting or burning some marshmallows. And I feel relaxed. I do feel like I want to go camping. And I am noticing that with these old tents, the quality seems much better than the one I bought at an unnamed place last year.
But you know what? It's a different material.
Okay.
Because now tents are made from nylon.
Right.
Before then, they're made from canvas or cotton. So all the tents we have here are cotton tents.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, now there is a group in town. They're connected with the Fish and Game Club in Nanaimo. They take camping very seriously. We're going to talk about that later on this edition of Go Island. But first, Ian Holmes. We're going to revisit a story that he did with chair of the RDN, Joe Stanhope, who I imagine camps a lot himself.
I hope so.
Yeah. We'd like to acknowledge that Joe Stanhope was awarded Queen Elizabeth II's Royal Jubilee on January the 22nd for his contributions to the community. Congratulations, Mr. Stanhope. Up next on Go Island, we are going to start featuring a new what we call signature piece. We're calling it Clocked, and we are tasking two of our talented team members, Todd Jones and Derek Johnstone, with a challenge. In this envelope are some instructions. They have not seen it. No one has seen it except myself, and it's been very hard to keep it a secret and not brainstorm it with people, but that's another story. They have 1 hour real time to find out the answer to this question. Are you ready, guys? Go. Winner? You guys think you won? Really? I would call that a tie. But seriously, good job, guys, and we look forward to having more installments of Clocked in future editions of Go Island. You are watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. I'm Kate Bergen. We're here at the Nanaimo Museum. This is Doug Miller, and you're holding an old gun, and you got a big old tent behind you. You're with the Nanaimo Fish and Game.
I'm with Nanaimo Fish and Game, and I'm part of the black powder section of Nanaimo Fish and Game. And there are groups like ours, mostly associated with fish and game clubs all across the province, as well as across Canada and throughout North America.
Now, when you say groups like ours, what are you? What do you do?
We are about 20 to 24 people.
Okay.
We shoot in competition with muzzle-loading guns, where you pour the powder down the front of the gun.
And how old is this gun?
This particular gun was actually made in 1820, and it was then sent back to the factory and converted to a more modern system in the 1840s. And I still shoot it. It's accurate. Our get-togethers are called rendezvous, and the rendezvous really are a combination of shooting competitions as well as camping. Very much family orientated, very safe, a lot of fun, very peaceful.
Let's go have a look. Todd, come on over here. Todd's behind the camera today, and as you go past, have a look in the tent there. That looks pretty sweet. That looks better than any modern day camping that I've done. This is your personal tent, is it not?
It's a friend of mine's personal tent,
okay.
But it's still very much in active use. And as you say, they're very comfortable.
Double beds, you got laundry, you have a full kitchen in there.
I prefer mine to a motor home or a you know, a camp or whatever.
So this is what it would look like when you guys get together, and this is near Kamloops, did you say?
I think.
Go ahead.
Some people are in teepees. Most people are in some form of tent.
And the people in the back that prefer the motorhomes or the modern day tents, you have a word for those. What do you call those people?
Well, that's in Tin Town.
Tin Town.
So,
I think I like the digs in Tin Town.
I stay in primitive.
Yeah.
And in primitive, I have to be in costume, and my camp has to be appropriate to the, say, the 1840s or 50s. So we're not allowed to have any plastic showing. We cook over open fires. In my own case, I can my food in advance because there's no refrigeration, and in glass bottles. And then.
And how long are you out there for?
This particular one goes on for about 10 days.
For about 10 days. Now, one of the questions I asked Doug before we got the cameras rolling was, why?
Because
I need a purpose, a point, the why.
I suppose you could say that it revolves around shooting competitions, but it every bit as much revolves around the social aspects, because most of us, we are such a small select group that most of us know each other, and we get to meet each other, in this particular case, once a year. And this particular case has people gathering from as far south as Idaho, Washington State, as far east as Saskatchewan, a number of people from Alberta, and clubs from all over British Columbia.
I noticed that your hands are quite black. Is that from all the black powder?
They become even more black after I've been shooting.
Is there an element of preservation in this? Are you trying to sort of hold on to a way of life that maybe we're at risk of losing?
I think so. At the same time, I have to admit that I really wouldn't want to have lived in the good old days the way they really were. I mean, if you broke a leg, there's a good chance you died. There's numerous battles between, you know, opposing factions, and it's much nicer to have modern health care and so forth today. But beyond that, in terms of the camping style, very comfortable. I'm quite happy. And in fact, I stay in primitive by preference rather than because I can't afford a camper or something like that.
Right. Well, that looks doesn't look too primitive to me, and I think it's fabulous that we can have the opportunity to look back at some of the best parts of history and make a hobby out of it. We're going to take a short break on this edition of Go Island, and we'll be back with more from the Nanaimo Museum. Still ahead today on Go Island, keeping safe in winter road conditions and spiced apple cider with our island chef. That and more still ahead today on Go. This life is feeling pretty sweet. I'm ready for some camping. We're here at the Nanaimo Museum, and they are looking into the history of camping. We'll tell you more about that on this edition of Go Island just a little bit later on. Meantime, if you are out and about after dark, it's important to wear reflective clothing. That's the topic of our next winter driving tip. You're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. We're here at the Nanaimo Museum exploring an exhibit called How We Camp. Now, you can't camp without cooking, and you can't cook without fire or a stove. If you prefer the stove part over the open fire part, or you want to eat more than marshmallows, you've got some stoves over the years here.
We have some stoves, and these stoves, a lot of the stoves came out of the 1930s, 1940s. Coleman really went to stoves in a big time with the Second World War and providing stoves for GIs. So what we have here, we have a larger stove from 1946, runs on gasoline. So that would be a great one. One bit big for backpacking, you know, but it weighs a few pounds. But some of those we have smaller. We have a Swedish one here, a Primus, runs on kerosene. They were really, from the 1920s to the 1970s, a really popular backcountry stove.
Doesn't look like you could really cook much on that one.
You can. It's amazing how hot it gets.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're great little stoves. And again, if you want a bit more fancier, the Primus in the back is a 2-burner, and that ran on alcohol.
That one looks like it came out of my first apartment in college.
Could be. And then the one, the classic one we have over here, the Coleman running on white gas. That one's from the 1980s, and like the last generation before the propane started becoming more popular. And of course, things like the toaster accessory, 'cause people try to make their own toast. Usually end up like marshmallows, burnt.
Yeah, burnt. Now, you were saying that a lot of people in this community donate things or loan you things when it comes to exhibits that you're having here.
And that's one of the nice things about this exhibits. Some of the small things we have here are from the museum's collection, but a lot of it we came from people in the community who heard we were doing the exhibition and called up and said, I have this thing in the basement or in the garage, and we think it'd be great for the camping exhibition, and they're right.
And they want it back, though, in time for camping season, because they're probably still
That's
using
why
it.
we finish on the end of April.
Right, on the end of April, because I think I've still got that 1980s one in my basement that we will be using this summer. Speaking of stoves, we're going to throw things over to a guy called Michael Williams. He is our island chef. He can't do what he does without a stove, most of the time, because sometimes he uses a blender. That brings us to the end of this edition of Go Island. We've enjoyed exploring the exhibit How We Camped. It's running here at the Nanaimo Museum until April the 27th. And I just can't resist. Bill McKay, if you're watching on Nanaimo City Council, is this what you had in mind for Diana Krall Plaza? I couldn't resist. Anyways, there is an interactive component to the exhibit here at the museum. If you have an old camping photo or even a recent one, you can send it in or drop it off, and they are building a community camping wall here in the museum in downtown Nanaimo. That brings us to the end of this edition of Go Island. As I mentioned, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. That's for you, Bill.